The first job I ever had, my dad's an actor, and it was something that I never wanted to pursue at all.
Yeah, I didn't want to do what my dad did either.
You didn't, and I don't know if it was just because it was my dad, if it's that thing, or because you're trying to cut the umbilical cord or whatever that is. But it was the insecurity that I saw, because my parents spent money as it came. So we had money, and then suddenly we were living in a guest house, and then suddenly we were living in a decent house, and then suddenly there was a boat, and then there was no boat, whatever it was. So I said I wasn't interested, and I was interested in law, but I had an opportunity between, like, you know, basket weaving and improv as an elective, and I took the improv. And I got up, I was the first person asked to get up on stage and to create a character. And I got up and I created some, I don't know, mid-50s Brooklyn, I don't know, something that I had seen somewhere that was in some file in my head. And then I remember, like, just riffing and people laughing. And that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I felt like such a freak or misfit, and not in a negative way, but it was like the one play, it was like, I guess, when people do drugs and they go, oh, I have to have this feeling. And it wasn't that I was accepted, but it was the fact that it was like whatever I was doing in somebody else's voice was working. It wasn't working in my voice at all, but whatever I was doing in somebody else's voice was working.
I made a conscious decision to try to segue out of theater into screen acting, basically because, you know, I was 35 years old and didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, you know, and I was doing a Broadway show, so I had 2 nickels, but I didn't have 2.
You didn't have 3
50-cent pieces to rub together, and a lot of guys in the cast where it was like Mark Lynn Baker, Nathan Lane, John Slattery, you know, a lot of guys who did television and film also. And once we got open and we were running, it was like, wow, these guys are, you know, they're talking about, you know, what film they might be doing, or, you know, they're talking about, oh, I walked out to the mailbox today and there was a check, you know, and I got paid for walking to the mailbox.
Right.
And I'm not doing the same thing 8 times a week. So when that run was coming to a close, I told my agent, I said, no plays.
But yet you didn't have anything that you were looking forward to. You just knew that you didn't want to do that. You were willing to create that hole in order to be filled with something.
Yeah. And then, you know, a year later, I'm doing Oz with Fontana. I mean, that ended up leading to that.
I didn't know that. I never saw Oz, so you did Oz.
Oz was, and it was, you know, groundbreaking.
Right.
And
I know the show was, right.
And it was for a lot of New York theater guys, and that started their careers, you know.
So did you get work from that? Did people go, okay, Oz, you did?
Yeah, and I was smart enough at the time to go, because I was playing the head of the Aryan Brotherhood, you know, in a maximum security prison. So
I actually know I saw you in that, and I didn't know that was you.
Oh,
I know that I saw you, because you were like, what was it?
I had a blonder thing going on.
Right.
Well, when we started it, I was heavy. And then I watched the first season and went, I just don't believe the fat guy as the head of the Aryan Brotherhood. So I kind of, you know, went to the gym and started taking care of myself.
There wasn't a lot of prep for that one.
No. It was like bing, bang, boom.
Right.
But I got, after that started airing, my agent, every call my agent got was to play the Nazi of the week on some, you know, procedural. And I said, I cannot be this guy, you know, forever.
Forever. My career started when I was 16. My parents were very adamant about not giving me anything. You know, I think overcompensated in that way a bit, which is fine, which is great actually. And I went probably 300 auditions and I didn't get anything. And I was told I should find a new career, and I should be told, I mean, everything. And I was bad. I wasn't good. I wasn't trained. I wasn't good. And then I started training with people and doing all that. And I did this movie called The Goonies, which was a hit. You know, it was like a cult hit. And I thought that's what it was like. You know. And then you go and work after that.
And it was
and
for
it was for
weeks.
6 months, you know, 8 months. And then I went and did a movie called Thrashin', which has now become a cult hit. But I saw myself, I was in the theater looking at that movie, thinking, you're so bad. Like, you're not just bad, you're so bad. Like, if you have any impact on this industry, it's that you're hurting people, right? You're wasting people's time. So I went to that thing, which was an idea of going to New York. And like, real actors live in New York, which you find out later that that's not true either. But one of the greatest things for me was I was doing plays. I don't know, maybe you know him, Anthony Zerbe, who's a really good friend of mine. And you know, who's been around forever. And Anthony and I did a series together. And in between, when you do a series, if you have any modicum of what anybody perceives as success, if you're doing a series during hiatus, you do a movie. But I didn't.
And your agent's losing his mind.
Losing his mind.
Yeah.
And telling me, like, you know, I remember I had the opportunity to do Back to the Beach, which was the comeback of Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon, and I turned it down.
And you're doing Taming of the Shrew instead.
Exactly right. But even that is so pretentious anyway. It's like, I'm going to be a real actor. I'm not going to do Back to the Beach.
I mean, I've really enjoyed working with, you know, first time or young directors, which can be a crapshoot, you know. I mean, and you take a leap of faith based on, in my case, in Whiplash, it was just based 100% on what he'd put on the page.
Right.
You know, it's about jazz. It's written by a young guy whose name is Damien Chazelle, and I say yes, I love it. You know, so I go to the Daily Grill to meet Damien Chazelle, and for no reason at all, I had an image of Antoine Fuqua.
Right.
This is what when I think Damien Chazelle and a movie about jazz.
It's like the same syllables.
I'm seeing Antoine Fuqua,
right.
Chazelle Fuqua, and I walk into the Daily Grill, and of course, you know, he's going to know what I look like because he's, you know, wants me to be an actor in his movie.
Right.
And I'm kind of looking around, and there's this like skinny, nerdy kid that looks like he's 18 years old. Right. You know. This little curly-haired white boy from Jersey. Sitting down with him and meeting him, you know, you get a sense, you know, this kid's really smart. His heart is in the right place. He wants to make the film, you know, his take on the film is the same as mine in terms of not wanting to dictate to the audience, you know, how they're supposed to feel about this sort of debate of how much is too much and does great art require that kind of sacrifice and abuse and all of that. But I don't have anything other than a gut instinct to go on in terms of whether this guy can direct a movie.
And there was nothing that he had ever done. There was nothing that you knew of, like maybe a couple of shorts.
We did a short of Whiplash.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, as a sort of proof of concept over a year before.
You mean like a workshop in order to get it financed?
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
We shot the short in the summer 2012 in like June, 3 days.
Right.
It was basically one scene from the film, the first scene where Andrew comes to play in studio band. And they took the short to Sundance, and it won an award and you know, generated the funding to make the feature.
Right. P.T. Anderson called me, and it was one of the only times for Inherent Vice I had known him through the awards circuit, if you will, when we were doing No Country, and he had There Will Be Blood, and I just have always been a fan. And you know, any time somebody rains frogs on film, I'm there. And Paul, you know, was always somebody who I loved because he took chances. And there's very few people that you work with who have final cut on their film. And sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. Not because they have final cut does that make them a great filmmaker. But in meeting him and talking with him during that circuit, I just loved who he was. There was no pretense. And, you know, I really enjoy that. You know, it's like working with the Coens and you finish a scene, there's going to be no, like, amazing. You're amazing. You know, the most you're going to get, I think the most I ever got in 2 movies and now just about to start a 3rd with Ethan was I finish a scene, I look up, like, you know, that eye thing that you do, like, okay, and they go. And that's the biggest compliment I ever got.
No, the biggest compliment you get from them is moving on.
Moving on. Like we got what we needed professionally. And we'll create a movie out of that. So P.T. Anderson is the same, but he gets in there and he's more like he digs a hole and throws all his actors in and then kind of, you know, films them climbing out. And it's great because it is a collaboration, and it's not often that you get to actually collaborate, not to feel like you're more part of it, but just you start to go, wow, you know, I have an idea for this and somebody's interested in it. And then also when there's no ego, if it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea.
Yeah. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it works. Throw it out.
So for me, it was a wonderful character to be able to explore through the bong hit of Pynchon and somebody basically doing the impossible, kind of like Julian Schnabel when he did Diving Bell and the Butterfly. How do you take that novella and make it into a movie, and as brilliantly as he did. And it was the same thing with Paul and Pynchon, because Pynchon had never been adapted or made into a movie.
But it's good to know that you're going into it with the guy who has final cut.
Totally.
And you know, so when you're talking to the filmmaker, you know, you're talking to the filmmaker. You're not talking to the 6 heads of whatever that are going to, you know, be in there doing their thing.
You know, and I remember I was talking to Paul and to the Coens at one point, and they were like, we don't want to do that. The goal is not to do bigger. The goal is to stay.
Yeah.
And to keep doing what we love to do, which is tell stories.
Yes.